One of the most underused but truly essential and fundamental skill in drawing is line width variation, being able to vary the width of your line at will. This should be in the skill set of anyone that is serious about learning drawing, especially any kind of line drawing, right? So I'll share 10 simple but very effective exercises you can practice anywhere, anytime in less than 10 minutes, but will definitely improve your drawing skills. Oh, and excuse the blue ink on my fingers. I was filling with my fountain pens. Anybody who owns fountain pens, you know how it is. All right, because I was actually thinking of using a fountain pen for this video, but instead I'm just going to use a simple old number 2 pencil. So that way you can see that you don't really need fancy supplies or materials or anything like that. Not even, a dip pen. Just a simple old number 2 pencil is all you really need. And for most exercises and most drawing practices, all you need for the fundamentals of drawing is nothing more than a number 2 pencil. So you can practice it anytime, anywhere at your convenience. Okay, so first of all, what is it, right? Well, weight in drawing refers to the thickness of a line, right? So there's 3 different line weights, all right? Now, I know, so simple, but trust me, this is very, very, very powerful. Now, there is so much you can do with this, and the visual impact it can have on your drawing is practically immeasurable, right? So like I said, I'm using a number 2 pencil, so you can see that you really don't need much to practice the fundamentals of drawing. And even if you're learning this to apply to ink drawing, the same applies, right? You really don't even need to create that drastic difference in your line weight. Understanding the principle and getting the basic skills down is what really matters, all right? So let's get to the first exercise. We're basically going to make 3 groups of lines from thick to thin. And this is very important because we're learning how to be consistent with our line weight. That's most important first before we actually learn to vary the weight of the line within a single stroke, right? We have to learn how to be consistent in our weight in one line. So we're basically just going to create 3 different groups. So I'm kind of like using this as a reference, right? And these don't need to be that long. See, I'm trying to be consistent with the weight. And what happens is, and this is kind of like a bifaceted kind of an effect, because even though we're making the lines thin, the visual effect is not only the weight of the line decreases, it's not only getting thinner, but it appears to get lighter as well. Well, with a pencil, you'll see that effect. But if I were using a pen, the value would pretty much be consistent. But with a pencil, it actually gets lighter. So here is having a double effect. The line is thinner and it's looking lighter. So you can use this in 2 different ways in your drawings. And I'm creating about, I say like 7 strokes or so, just so you can get an idea of being consistent. And the cool thing about a number 2 pencil is that it challenges you, because you're not using like a different grades of pencils where you can have a 4B, which is really deep, and then you have a HB in the middle, and then you have like a 2H. Should be really light. No, instead we're using one pencil to actually create this gradient. So we're challenging ourselves to push the limits of this pencil. And what that does, it helps you to develop your sensitivity to values and controlling your values. Because sometimes when you have too many pencils, it can be a bit confusing, especially in the beginning when you're just learning. So it's important to be able to use one instrument. So consistency is very important. We're just practicing here. So the second exercise, we're doing the same thing, but now we're making our strokes a bit longer. So we're still creating three groups of lines of different weights, but now we're challenging ourselves to make the line longer. You see, I'm not being too crazy about making sure the lines are perfectly straight and all that. The weight of the line is what I'm going for. Now, really quickly, why this is so important, it's other than just creating, the weight, varying the weight of a line within a single stroke, but being able to group your lines by weight. It's because sometimes, well, a lot, when you draw, especially using line, there will be times where there are areas of your drawing, say for example, an area that's in light and an area that's in shadow, where you'll need to use a consistent weight of lines in that area. So for example, if I'm rendering a form, right, and the area that's in light, I won't use heavy lines in the light area, okay? That's a no-no, all right? And likewise, I may not necessarily use light lines in the shadow area because you don't want to confuse the viewer, okay? You want to create consistency in terms of how the viewer interprets what you're seeing, right? Because as we're drawing, we're thinking about creating the illusion of reality. And we have to sometimes simplify reality to make that more believable or convincing for someone looking at your drawing. They want to be able to look at it and know what's going on. So what we have to do then is ensure that what's happening in the light area is consistent with things that are in light. And what's in the shadow area is consistent with things that are in shadow. So the types of strokes that we use to render aspects or parts of the form in light will have really light strokes. So we have to be able to be consistent in the light area and be consistent in the shadow area. All right. And exercises like this, drills like this, helps us to nail that. Okay. So we develop a muscle memory. So when you're here, you don't even have to think about it. You just do it. So here, I know sometimes you may be tempted to do like this, but challenge yourself to make one fluent stroke. See, my wrist is not moving that much. I'm moving my entire arm as a unit with slight movement in my fingers. So in this exercise, we're going to introduce weight variation within a single line, all right? So in this example, we're going to start from light and go to dark. And I would say try to go from like if this is the length, I would say go like halfway, all right? Like a third to halfway, really light, and then you start transitioning into a deeper, a greater weight. Increase the thickness. And this is where there's a concept I borrowed from animation called easing in and easing out. So essentially, when something comes to a halt, right? To make when animators are creating the movements, right, and they want to look realistic, they don't make something just come to an abrupt stop because we don't do that, right? Things come to a gradual halt, and that's called easing in, right? So here, what we're doing, I kind of applied that concept to drawing strokes where I'm easing in, meaning I'm easing in terms of the pressure. So I'm going gradual pressure and then increasing the amount of pressure I put on the point. And I guess, here you can even challenge yourself to either delay until the end or make it really fast. But you should definitely be able to see the contrast from thin to thick, thin to thick. So in this exercise, we're going to now do the opposite. So we're going to, in the same animation concept where we're easing in, you slowly come to a halt. Easing out reverses that. So when something is moving, it just doesn't abruptly start from zero to actually skip zero and skip everything and just start at 100. We actually gradually increase. So we accelerate, right? So here you're decelerating, here you're accelerating. So we're doing the opposite. So I'm easing out in terms of pressure, right? So I'm starting heavy, gradually decreasing the pressure on the point. Gradually decreasing the pressure on the point. So now we're going to up the challenge. And what we're going to do now is we're going to vary the weight of the line twice in a single stroke. So we will start with thin, thick, and then thin. Thin, thick, and then thin. And another really important thing that you learn by doing this, you learn to slow down. You learn to slow down, which is so important in drawing. Perhaps that's like the most challenging thing for drawing students. I don't know what's the rush about, but being able to slow down is such a challenge for new students. When you're just learning to draw, slowing down can make the drawing process feel like it's boring. But as you get more experience, slowing down is actually meditative. So now we're going to go from thick to thin to thick. So I'm pressing down, easing up, pressing again. But I'm not making it sudden. I'm trying to make it a gradual, very smooth transition. Now we're going to up the challenge a bit more, and now we're going to introduce curvature, okay? So we're drawing curved lines and introducing line rate variation within it, all right? So I did these lines before, but they were not in the shot, so we're going from thin to thick, but we're actually curving as we do it. And again, we're going to do the opposite. And as I said, you can find ways to challenge yourself. You can go this way. And you can change the rate at which you do it. So you can start early and start going thin early, or you can thick and thin at the end. Thick, thin at the end. I actually come up with these exercises while I'm drawing, because I see certain individual or isolated skills that I think are important to practice on their own. Now, as we did before, now we're going to introduce two variations within a curve, all right? So it can look something like this. So let's do like a S curve. Thin to thick to thin. 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 And like we did before, now we're going to do the opposite, right? So we go from bold or really wide, thin, wide, thick, thin, thick. Now, if after watching this, you still feel there's more you want to learn or you'd benefit from me going more in depth on this, I did that in my pen and ink shading course and in my pen and ink drawing guide and workbook. So I'll leave their info in the video description. So here's some bonus exercises for you to have fun with. So you've tried all these, you've done all these drills, you've practiced them, and you just want to find more simple ways to keep drilling that. So here's some simple things you can do. So this one, we're kind of creating like a like a ribbon, a wave-like form. So they'll come this way and then this way. And you can go, from thick to thin, thin to thick, however you want to do it. So we'll start like, say, thin to thick. They're kind of like converging. And then out. And in this one, we're creating like a little teardrop shape. So it's something like this, right? But what I'm doing is I'm starting light or thin at the top, and then it gets thick at the bottom, and then gets thin again. Now using that same type of shape, we're going to do two separate exercises, right? So one, we're starting thin at the top, and then thick, and then thin. So it's almost like I'm following the swelling of this form, right? So it's like it's narrow at the neck, then swells up, then it tapers. Swells up and tapers. Swells up and tapers. Thin, swells up and then tapers. See? Now here, these are more vertical. We're going to go horizontal. So thin, thick, thin, thin, thick, thin. So as the form bulges out, we're imagining it as a three-dimensional form. We're swelling up, and then it tapers as it goes away. See, you can even do more. You can make them closer together. It's up to you. Like an ovoid form, kind of like spiraling out and then spiraling back in. Thin to thick to thin. 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 The thing is, there are all ways of just training your muscle memory. You want to develop your muscle memory. So these things become second nature. And these are fundamental building blocks of drawing, because as they become more second nature, then you can start freeing up your mind to focus on other things. You don't want to be focusing on these things as you're drawing, as you're advancing your drawing. That's why it's so important to spend adequate time on the fundamentals to develop a level of proficiency before moving on to more complex things. Not that you can't challenge yourself, but really give fundamentals their fair due in terms of time and practice. This is a very solid set of simple but effective exercises you can do to work on your alignment variation skills. And the cool thing about them is that you don't need a lot of time or space or materials. You can use a number 2 pencil and still be able to adequately practice and develop these skills. All right. As I said, I also go more in depth in this in my pen and shading course and my pen and drawing guide and workbook. But definitely feel free to use these as a springboard and play around with them. Find ways to push them, modify them, make them more challenging, make them simpler, and just have fun. Just have fun. Okay, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. It's actually been a while since I did a longer video. Remember, if you found this useful, subscribe for more content like this. Drop your questions and tips, whatever you want to share in the comments. Keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next video.